Welcome to Rucks Balls and Oval Balls. This is episode 31 of the fans' favourite rugby podcast, hosted by the fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts. That's right, it's me, Dave, again, back as ever, and joined as ever by Rory. Rory, say hello to the listener.
Hi, listener. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm very well indeed. How are you doing? How are things? How's the fridge situation? I'm sure people want an update.
Unresolved. I'm still sans fridge. It's a real worry in my flat.
How have you existed for 7 whole days sans fridge?
Tinned goods.
Well, that sounds awfully healthy and awfully, I can't think of the right word. It sounds awful.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's not great. Outside of fridge-based anecdotes, anything else going on in the life of Rory?
Pre-season, back on. Got myself back on the paddock. Had a little run around, which was far too much actually, and don't like running around. But got a ball back in the hands.
Very good. How's the second team shaping up? Are there high hopes for Westcliff seconds this year?
Recruitment is ongoing. As I wander around the local area, if I bump into any former older players, I go, do you fancy playing a bit of Lions this year? And so far, I've got a lot of non-committal responses.
Fantastic. That sounds just about right. And that takes me back to the days where I, as the University of Essex seconds team vice captain, was walking around Essex University and bumped into yourself in your new flat and said, "You're playing rugby, right?" And you went, "Yep, that's how it works, isn't it?"
What an origin story we have.
I know, it's very exciting and a real insight into the genesis of this podcasting duo. In other news, Man v Fat, I've recorded my very first ever weight gain. It was inevitable, but I did indulge myself over the weekend at a wedding. And, you know, you've got to live. Now I'm free from the shackles of salad. It's going to happen. But we know we're back on the wagon now. We're going to go in the right direction. And the mighty Saladsons will continue to thrive under my captaincy.
The journey to Rig City is not a straight line.
The journey to Rig City is not a straight line. And there will be peaks and troughs. We go on. We carry on. But Rory.
We go again.
This is going to be a relatively pocket-sized version of the Rucks Balls and Oval Balls podcast because we are constrained by our, livelihoods and need to earn money outside of this podcast. So we haven't got a lot of time to talk all things rugby. What we're going to do is we're going to touch on one or two things in the rugby world that is worth discussing. We're going to talk about that big game at the weekend. There's a few talking points. And then we'll touch a little bit on the women's rugby world. How does that sound?
That sounds fantastic. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And we're starting with Rugby 360, Rory. I spotted a little article on the newspaper website of a newspaper that is not very reputable, but, sometimes they have up-to-date rugby news, talking about Rugby 360 having some big hitters lined up in terms of financially being behind it, namely being the Fenway Sports Group, famously behind Boston Red Sox and Liverpool Football Club, the Glazers, famously for being useless, but have a lot of money and behind Manchester United, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, other sporting ventures. Red Bull, that name keeps floating around. We haven't seen it yet linked with Newcastle, although I suspect there's some money there because they've all of a sudden started announcing a load of re-signings, but we'll see. And that apparently already half the England team have signed up to be part of it. Obviously, all of this is conjecture, unconfirmed, potentially just a bit of journalistic freedom, but no smoke without fire often. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I heard through the grapevine of some a contact of a contact being signed up as R360's media and PR executive. So, once you sign one of those in, amazingly, stories do start appearing in newspapers.
Yeah.
I mean, it is no smoke without fire. I'm sure conversations are taking place, and I'm sure that I wouldn't be surprised if, several rugby players have gone, "You could offer me how much?" "Yeah, sure. If it comes off the ground, fine. Let's talk about it." But no one's announced they're signing for R360. There's no detail behind their plans, really. It's still. It still just sounds like a cash grab by everyone involved. And everyone's gone, fine, if I get some money out of it, great. But
Yeah,
is anyone actually...
On the one hand, you couldn't blame the players for going for it because, again, reportedly, it's kind of £1 million contracts. That's much more than they're going to be earning anywhere else they would be getting at the moment.
Short career, earn your money.
Earn your money. I imagine it would be considerably less games and a lot of travel, but for more cash in your pocket. So you can't blame them for wanting to kind of get on board wholeheartedly. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I still don't see how this helps the sport as a whole. A lot of people are saying, oh, the sport needs a complete rebuild from the bottom up anyway. This isn't that. This isn't that at all. If anything, it kills the game off even more. So
fuses the whole thing, doesn't it? I tell you who it helps. Some prominent people who've signed up to it who would like to see their pockets lined.
Yeah.
And fine, we've all got to earn a crust, but is anyone really convinced that this is going anywhere? Because I remain unconvinced.
But as we say, no smoke without fire. And the fact that they are hiring media and PR people to the entity of R360 suggests it isn't just a headline name, that it is an entity that is in existence and they are trying. It's just a case of whether it gets off the ground or not.
I'm sure they're trying. Would you hire a media and PR person before you hire a player? I don't know.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe that is what you do. Maybe that's what you do. I've never set up a breakaway franchise league, but
yet.
Yeah.
Mob 360 TBC.
I don't know. I mean, I could see a Westcliff Lions franchise taking on the best in the world.
Yeah,
that's my plan anyway.
Yeah. The Saladsons will give you a game of touch rugby.
Yeah, actually, no. The more I think about it, the more great logos we have in store for our breakaway franchise league.
But what are your thoughts about the names being linked to it? Because that is a little bit worrying if any of those names are actually linked to it, because they have deep enough pockets to sustainably keep it going, even if it makes no money.
Yeah, but they're not groups that will want to plough money into an unprofitable venture. If there's no substance to the product, Fenway Sports aren't going to put money into it. The Glazers aren't going to put money into it if they think there's no end profit.
Yeah, and I can't see
out the back of it.
I can't see how this will be profitable from what I've heard either. So it'll be really interesting.
I know they're going to be on free-to-air TV, but what free-to-air TV? It's
maybe the same deal that PWR got with streaming rights on BBC iPlayers back alleys.
I mean, this is it, though. The BBC don't have massively deep pockets, realistically, at this point.
No.
ITV and Channel 4 aren't going to shell out millions and millions to show a breakaway franchise rugby league.
Rugby Pass TV?
Huh?
Rugby Pass TV?
Well, yeah, exactly. That notoriously stable and legitimate product. I mean, I just don't see the end game here. What free to air TV? I mean, it
is an odd one. We shall wait and see what other news comes down the line. Hopefully, nothing too much. Apparently, it's all being lined up for next year, which I do not believe. I cannot see how that could possibly happen, especially with all the contracts the players will have signed with EPS contracts and all that sort of stuff. And just it feels like any player signing up would be in breach of all that.
1 year before a World Cup, they're all gonna leave right before the start of a World Cup, are they?
Yeah, apparently so. Doesn't quite feel right. But we will keep the listener abreast of any goings on that we catch wind of. Let's just get into it, Rory. Lions. We got to talk about Lions. We haven't got a lot of time. We need to talk about this test on the weekend. Lots of talking points, lots of things to go over. Let's start off, Rory. Please share your initial thoughts of the second test of the Lions versus Australia.
One of the best test matches I can remember watching. Just superb. Both teams absolutely playing their part. Australia coming roaring back into the contest. So physical, so dominant, so great with the ball. Absolutely setting out to leather people. I thought it was superb to watch. I went and watched it in the pub. The atmosphere was great. Everyone was getting behind it. 35 minutes in, we were thinking, God, we haven't turned up here. Australia rolled it up to 11, and the Lions just can't hack the pace and physicality of it. And then they come steaming back into the contest. Obviously, there's some things to talk about on how they managed that, but I thought I just loved watching this game. you wish it was the first test had been like that.
Yeah.
And the rest of the test series was in the balance. But the Lions have now won the series. They've come through an unbelievably tough test match. Australia really showed what they can produce, what they're about. I was thoroughly impressed by them, and I thought watching Australia, it's 90 odd thousand people in the MCG, not a rugby heartland for either code really. An opportunity to showcase their team in front of a new audience, a big audience. And I thought if I was Australian watching that game for, let's say I hadn't watched much rugby in the past, maybe it was even the first time, I would have fallen in love with that test match team.
Yeah.
Watching that, just the amount of heart and resolve and effort and physicality. There's a lot of names to highlight on it, but I was just so thoroughly impressed by their performance, and then equally so impressed by the Lions' resolve to get back into the game.
Yeah.
To win it in that last minute, the way that they did, with just a great finish by Hugo Keenan, just so exciting. It was almost everything you'd want from a Lions test win.
Yeah, it ticked every
box for me. Obviously there's a couple of controversies that we need to talk about, but just high level for me, for the magic of the Lions, the dynasty of the Lions, all that kind of thing. This was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. For as test matches go, that was as close to as an ideal product you want to be putting out there for people to watch, because it had everything. I completely agree with you. The way Australia turned up, it was night and day compared to the first test. How committed they were. They were hungry for it. Their skill levels were up there. A number of individual performances were just completely different to a week ago, which was really good to see. And a couple of the newer faces that joined the squad, boy, what a difference they made. I'm very keen to talk about Will Skelton at some point over the next half hour or so. But should we dig into a couple of the more controversial points? Let's start off with the Dan Sheehan try.
Yes. Well, it didn't look right. Didn't look right to me.
Yeah. And there's a few Welsh fans. I was watching it with a Welsh fan who went, Blair Murray might have something to say about this.
Yeah. So the difference between those two, Blair Murray hurdled a player in open play. Yeah. You are allowed to jump in the act of scoring a try. You're not allowed to hurdle players in the act of scoring a try, and he did sort of jump over two Australian tacklers. They went very low.
It wasn't sort of. He did.
Yeah, he did. Okay. Let's remove the ambiguity. He jumped over two Australian tacklers. I think by the letter of the law, I think it's okay. By the spirit of the law, I'm not so sure, because Australian players dived really low at his feet. So in some ways you could argue, well, he would have gone forward on that momentum anyway, quite possibly, because he would have just been tripped up and the centre of gravity would have gone over the top of them. But he did jump. It didn't look right. I'm not sure it is right. I think if I was Australian, I'd be spitting feathers about it.
And I think a few Australians are.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Is this a new effective counter to what we see on the try lines all the time, which is these really low chop tackles to the knees and ankles? Well,
this is the thing. If people are going to dive directly at your shins, there are only so many things you can do. I can imagine a certain Razzie Erasmus would have looked at that with great interest. That's the sort of thing that maybe an
adaptation,
Ebenet Beth or Quagga Smith or whoever could really profit quite greatly from.
Just what the South African team needs is another way to profit our way around.
Another new tactic. Yeah. We'll set up a line out straight from the tap off, and then we'll just throw him over the top of the defence to score the try. I don't look selfishly.
Fine with
this. It's a try for the Lions. I'm quite happy with it. Great, we scored, and it got us coming back into the Test match at a point when we were
second best,
almost down and out. If we don't score there, it's a long way back. With what would it have been, 45 minutes on the clock, 50 minutes on the clock. Oh no, sorry, it's the first one, isn't it? Well, even then, we've gone 6-0 down. Sorry, at that point. But Australia were really in the ascendancy. It was the first bit of possession that I think the Lions had really had. So I'm just going to play it with a biased bat and say, I don't care that it's the Lions try, I'm happy with it.
I'm happy with that standing. I'm happy to go with it as well. And if you're Australian, oh well.
Yeah.
There's always next week. Just do it. Just
maybe
do it to
jump
us.
more.
Yeah, just jump.
Maybe just jump more. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Before we get onto the second controversial point, so let's make a controversy sandwich with a nice, positive filling for the Australians, because this is obviously all not in their favour. How good were they in that first 35 minutes in open play?
Oh, phenomenal. Irrepressibly good. To the point when the Lions pack had no answers. Finn Russell was all at sea.
Passing to no one.
Passing to no one. I mean, honestly, if we're being completely honest about the game as a whole, bit of a stinker from Finn Russell. I thought they were just absolutely irrepressible. Suoliti came alive with that break to put right in. James Slipper getting his try, the old stager, 150 odd caps under his belt. Jake Gordon getting his try. I thought Jake Gordon and Tom Liner, absolute night and day from last week. Yeah. They were. Jake Gordon in particular, his kicking was great. Bit of a threat around the edges. Obviously, had to end up playing the whole match at 9 because McDermott came on early for Potter and had to cover on the wing. I thought he was every bit the player this week that the Australians were hoping for last week.
Yeah,
wasn't overawed by the occasion whatsoever. I was really impressed by Tom Liner. I mean, there were some mistakes in the game. It wasn't a perfect performance by him by any stretch, but to come back the way he did after last week, at his age and his level of experience, and produce that performance, finally getting Lenikitau and Suoliti into the game, obviously just massively helped by the forwards. Will Skelton, I think, has got taller.
He does seem to just be, on paper, he's obviously a very physical specimen, but it's not, freakish. You see him on the pitch, he just looks like he's got an extra 3 or 4 inches and an extra 20 kgs on everyone. It's
not normal. When him and Marrow had a bit of a scrap, I was watching at the pub, he's making Marrow look like a little boy.
Yeah.
And Marrow is 6'6", 120 odd kilos, and he was dwarfed by Will Skelton.
Yeah.
They cut at one point to him sort of in 3/4 profile, so you saw his arm and his chest. And I was looking and going, that's 3 men.
Yeah.
That is enough for 3 men. It's not normal. It can't be that big.
No. The thing is, I think he knows it as well, because I watched him a lot in the first half. I just focused on him. He is such a wind-up. Every single ruck, he was putting all his weight on all the Lions players at the bottom of the ruck. He was leaning on everyone. He was holding everyone back.
Yeah.
He is such
I noticed that.
And he was winding.
Do you know what it made me think of? In those sort of heavyweight boxing games when there's one boxer significantly bigger and they just lean on just to tire out the legs. Yeah. I was like, he's doing that. He's doing a Tyson Fury on the opposition.
That's exactly what he was doing, and I think it was working. I think it was getting into their heads. We all recall when Marrow Itoje went to ref. He started it, sir. I think that was
come on, Marrow.
I think that was born out of the frustration because they knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He was getting away with it because it's not that illegal. And I bet it was winding them right up.
Oh, it would have wound me up. And I'm stealing it, by the way. I'm stealing that for the season.
Oh, absolutely.
Watch out in the Essex Merit Leagues, because I am going to be leaning on you.
I think you should, Roy. I think it's an excellent tactic. And just hats off to Skelton for just having such a big impact on that first half in particular. Although he's ball in hand, doesn't do a lot. What he does around the fringes and to the forward pack and his carrying, it's unreal.
See what the likes of Miafu have done to that France team.
Yeah.
In terms of just getting momentum. Will Skelton does that job better than anyone, I think. I think he's the biggest of the lot amongst some very big tight-head locks knocking around at the moment. I think he's the biggest.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I thought Valentini, obviously only played the first half, obviously not quite fit enough for 80, showed why they missed him so much last week. Just the energy in his carrying is just so good.
Yeah.
And he's just so impactful.
And I do wonder if a fully fit Skelton and Valentini who are able to go 60, 70, 80 minutes, would the result have been different? I don't know. But their impact on the first half was clear and obvious.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I thought Gleeson was actually very good when he came on. I think he was really big and impactful. Tizano, I thought was pretty good as well, to be fair, when he came on from at right and steadied things around that kind of middle part of the second half when he could have gone either way. I was, I honestly, I can't speak highly enough for the effort that Australia pack.
No.
I thought they were just superb, and actually it took a monumental effort from really from the bench as much as anything for the Lions to get some ascendancy there. Huge credit to James Ryan. Wouldn't have been my pick on the bench of the Lions. I would have gone Scott Cummins. I thought he was brilliant when he came on. Really stepped up. Tagburn once again great.
Yeah.
Conan. I mean, I think Conan put in the highest number of tackles in the game.
27, wasn't it, or something like that?
Something ridiculous. I mean, well in the 20s. Just a massive effort. Again, the power of the Tash. Ellis Genge, when he came on, carrying like a demon once again. I mean, he is now got to be in the conversation for one of the best props in the world, isn't he?
It's certainly best loose heads. Absolutely.
Yeah,
he's got to be up there because I think he's added a bit of muscle on. He looks fit. He looks hungry again. He looks like he's really bought into this Lions ethos and what it all means. And I think it's bringing out that really dynamic side of his game that has been a little bit lacking, I'd say, over the last 12 months. But we're seeing the best of Ellis Genge now, and it's brilliant.
He seems to have got the emotional level right. Whatever they've done, he's really been into this leadership role. They keep talking about him in a leadership role in camp and for being the emotional driver. And you see it a lot. He's doing a lot of the pre-game talking. He seems to have really found his groove in terms of getting himself to that right level and raising the level of being that kind of force multiplier to everyone around him.
Yeah,
I've been so impressed by him on this tour, and I from what I'm reading, I think a lot of fans who were maybe a bit iffy on Ellis Genge have been really impressed by him. Yeah, I also thought Will Stewart was really good when he came on. Probably his best performance since the first opening couple of games. Carried really well. Got his hands on the ball a lot. Obviously, one slightly unfortunate penalty aside.
Yeah, I think that role. I was a bit on the fence about that, but I can see why the ref gave it.
I can see why he gave it, but I thought it was a bit unkind. But it is what it is. I was so impressed by his impact when he came on. Scrumming wise, they were completely solid. I thought Farrell and Kinghorn when they came on. James Lowe probably struggled more than most.
Didn't have his best game.
Not his best game, but I thought Blair Kinghorn on the wing when he came on was superb.
Yeah.
Great with the ball, made some great lines, made some great ground. Farrell just seemed to steady the ship, just get things ticking over a bit more, where Finn Russell was in one of his more erratic moods.
Yeah. I think we needed that.
In the last two games, the last couple of games that Farrell's been in, I think people have got to acknowledge that the reason he was brought in to offer that kind of steadying influence, they were absolutely right with that. Now you could, we've obviously had the argument about the merits of selecting him, and I know you weren't and probably remain a bit unconvinced about whether he should have been selected in the first place, but I don't think anyone can deny the actual practical impact he's had in the games that he's played.
Undeniable that. Absolutely undeniable. I won't argue about that at all.
Outside of that, Gibson Park, pretty good the whole game, just ticking things over.
Steady Eddie. And taking some pressure off Finn Russell where there was I'm going to keep going back to it, but I thought we saw there what really happens to even world-class fly halves when your pack is under pressure and going backwards, because he just lost all composure. Yeah. Well, I think what we saw in the first test, where, let's face it, the Lions were in the ascendancy from minute one, and it was a bit of an armchair. You compare that to this fixture where there was a lot of pressure on, the thinking time, a little bit of panic setting in, the decision making went a little bit, I think, with Finn, and it did lead to a few, as you say, erratic decisions, and that is part of his game. Unfortunately, sometimes it does come off because of the players around him.
Yeah.
I'm still unsure on whether Aki Jones worked as well if we were able to stick with either an Irish or Scottish centre partnership. But I do appreciate what Gary Ringrose did. Fair play to him, putting his hand up saying he wasn't feeling right. Complete credit to him for that. But I do think maybe the fact that the centre partnership wasn't quite on the same page could have impacted Russell as well. He didn't have Tuipulotu outside him. I don't want to make excuses for him, but it's the only one I can think of.
The pass straight into touch didn't come from the fact that the centre partnership weren't exactly moulded.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? It's those kind of mistakes that are the problem. You know, you can forgive the odd bit of unfortunate decision making at the wrong time when players aren't exactly where you expect them to be. But some of the basic, you know, kicking it out on the full in your own half, throwing it directly into touch, poor passes that don't go to hand, things that you bank on when you pick Finn Russell. You bank on those skills being on point.
Yeah,
that's where he lost. And
I do also want.
I don't expect him to be dropped for it, but
no. I also want to address a very clear anti-Northampton St. England agenda within some press rooms, giving Tommy Freeman a 3 out of 10 in some match ratings I've seen. Absolute criminal. He's the only player who carried over 50 metres. He's not the only player. He had a 100% tackle success rate. Yeah, he got a yellow card, but that was because of multiple team offences. Give your heads a wobble if you're giving Tommy Freeman a 3 out of 10, but giving James Lowe a 6 out of 10, people. Give your heads a wobble.
I mean, I don't think Tommy Freeman had his best game he'll ever have, but to suggest that he had a worse game than James Lowe for getting a team sin bin, I think is completely unfounded. He's what you're seeing with Tommy Freeman, I think, similar to what you saw with Finn Smith, really, is
no one's passing him the ball.
Well, that hasn't helped. And actually, what you're probably seeing is two players who are almost for the first time in their careers will have been thrown into a situation where the game isn't built around them because they're not the star players. You know, the Northampton game plan, quite rightly, is designed to get the ball into Tommy Freeman's hands because he scores all their tries, and to get the best out of Finn Smith because he's the best 10 they've got. And even at England, the game plan is designed to get Tommy Freeman front football with a high ball or get the ball out to him in the wing. You know, they back those players to be the star men in the team. Lions isn't like that, and that you've probably just seen two players who haven't quite hit the same heights when the game plan isn't specifically designed for them. It's not a slight on them as players because, you know, you have to be extraordinary to stand out in a Lions team by its definition. And they'll come away from this tour, assuming they didn't take the right lessons, they'll come away as better players for it. But Freeman is still a double test Lion, and I don't think he's had a bad game in either test. 3 out of 10 is a mad score for it. But they just haven't been the star men they've been in other situations.
That is a very fair and balanced response, Rory. I appreciate that. You had every opportunity to stick the boot into a Northampton Saint player, and you didn't take it. Well done. You're growing.
Absolutely not.
You're growing. Now let's get to the other side of the controversy sandwich. The clear out. I've heard so many different takes on this clear out, and a lot of them come with some very good, reasonable kind of stances. Right. Where
are we talking about the perfectly legitimate legal clear out by Jack Morgan right at the end before they scored the try?
That is the one. Yes.
Right.
Yes. There are quite a few people, and I will say, not just Australians. I've heard English and other nationality people question things. Let me give you some of the counters I've heard. So, firstly, from a fellow captain, Man v Fat, Ollie, if you're listening, I hope you appreciate the shout out. He agreed on the danger thing, not a danger thing, but it's been completely overlooked, the fact that Jack Morgan was off his feet.
Has he dived off his feet, or has the player he's countering almost half matadored him? Because he, you know, let's be honest, Tiziano went spinning backwards in a great theatrical dive. So rather than having someone to resist against, his momentum's then driven him to floor.
That is a perfectly reasonable response, Rory. I think that's a fair point to make to that point. It's one that you just need to rewatch it to really look at that side of things, the dynamic movement. Again, a counter also from the Man v Fat group, the referee from Man v Fat, who I don't generally agree with very often, did make a point of, because of Tiziano's head position basically being below his knees, there's I think it's like 15.3b in the law book states that because of the dynamic positioning of the player's head. That contact point is not a penalty, it's dynamic rugby movement and things like that. Lots of wording I didn't really absorb because of who was saying it.
Does that basically boil down to they both arrive with their noses scraping the floor? So how are you not going to get head contact?
Yes, exactly that. And the point I make is if you watch every single game of rugby, you probably see 10, 15 of those clear-outs every single game because players get as low as they possibly can. And the only way you can counter-ruck them is to get your head in the slot next to their head. There's no way to counter-ruck it unless you aim for their shoulders because there's no alternative. Or crop roll, which you can't do.
The only counter to that contact is to ban the jackal.
Yeah, which if we did that, we might as well just be playing touch rugby.
Possibly. I mean, I don't think we should ban the jackal, but there are plenty who do. Look, most of the criticism I've seen has been along national lines, but I appreciate it's not strictly that way. I don't see. Look, I can totally see why if you're an Australia fan, you want that to be a penalty. Of course, if it was the other way around, 100%, I'd have wanted it to be a penalty. But to legitimately think it is I just don't see it because you're creating a competition over the ball. So competition means that two players are competing for the ball. Unless the only time I've seen this counted is when people have slowed it down, sort of frame by frame, to suggest that Tizzano gets there first. In real time, they arrive at exactly the same time. It's there isn't a difference in the arrival times really. So by that logic in itself, Jack Morgan wraps. He doesn't tuck his arm or tuck his shoulder. He doesn't aim for the head. It's a perfectly natural way to.
Is the contact any different to two props at a scrum engaging? It's a similar sort of contact.
It's obviously more dynamic in that.
More dynamic, but it's the same contact point.
I honestly, I can't see how it is anything other than fine. Other than the fact that by its very nature, rugby is dangerous.
Yeah.
Outside of that proviso, it's, as far as I can tell, it's perfectly legitimate. Now, on the other hand, if I was Australian, I'd be, again, screaming about it. But that's because I want to win a test match, not because I think it's a legitimate penalty.
Should Tizzano be penalised for his acting?
No. Look, in that moment, with everything on the line, I can see how that would cross your mind to do.
Well, he did it to draw attention to it on the off chance it does get pulled back for a penalty. That's why he done it.
It nearly did. It nearly did. So by that logic, it's legitimate. It's not nice to see in terms of what we like to tell ourselves about the game, but at the same time,
happens every game. It happens every game now.
It's test match rugby. You got to do what you got to do sometimes. I'm fine with what Tizzano did broadly, and I don't think it was a penalty. I think all those things can be true.
Yeah, I'm on board with you, Rory. I don't believe it was a penalty. I'm very much in the camp of what else can Morgan have done to counter that ruck in any more legitimate way. The fact that the way it looked in slow-mo, ignore that. Look at the dynamic movement. Look at the timing, as you say, as arrived. It's more or less instantaneous. Morgan did everything by the book. And isn't it nice that a Welsh player has such an integral moment to help win a test match? So the Welsh feel part of this victory because they felt quite left out last week. Not so much this week. I'm
pleased for Jack Morgan's contribution. I'm glad that Wales can feel a part of the Lions more so this week. I'm just so thrilled about the game as a whole. I can't speak highly enough for that game. And if we look at the tests or look at the whole Lions series, started off really well with that Argentina test. Obviously, Lions didn't win, but I thought a good test. Really nice to see Argentina be involved. Nice to see something a little bit different. And then it's been a bit of a mixed bag on the other warm-up games. A lot of blowouts, a couple of really good games. The Tars game, really interesting. The Brumbies game was great. The FNP game was great. The first test match was a bit of a damp squib, but countering that with a superb test match this week, and I hope next week Australia bring it again and dial up their levels even higher, because that was a great advert for the sport, a great advert for Australian rugby, and a great advert for Lions rugby. I think the tour needed that game badly.
Yes, I agree. Would you Knowing that the series win is in the bag, make any changes to the third test side? Because I've seen a few pundits suggesting we can roll the dice a little bit and give some other players an opportunity. Would you do that, or would you stick with what you got?
No, I go out to win the game. I pick the best team available to win that game. So I think there are legitimate changes to discuss. You know, you could make a good argument for swapping Farrell in for Russell. You could make a good argument for swapping Kinghorn in for James Lowe or even Tommy Freeman if we wanted to be harsh about it. You could make a good argument for Jack Morgan and coming in for Tom Curry. Although I think Tom Curry, and you know, you cannot negate Tom Curry's contributions because he scored another try.
Yeah.
And that tackle on, I think it was on Gleeson. Yes, the tackle on Gleeson. That intervention then could legitimately have been the tipping point between the Lions coming back to win that game or Australia being too far out of sight because they looked odds on to score a try there.
Yeah, I think you can say Tom Curry has big game moments.
He does. He does, and he's been superb once again.
Yeah.
So you could definitely make the argument. You could even make the argument that James Ryan played better than Chesham, although I think Chesham actually had a pretty good game. There are decisions to make on selection, but the idea of switching the team around just to give people test caps, not for me. Not unless there's someone absolutely tearing it up behind the scenes. You think they deserve a go.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would be considering would be potential a couple of changes in the pack, and it will be along the lines of bringing Genge in to start again, because I think we will need to react to that physicality Australia will come within the pack again. So we need to pick a pack that is going to match that as best as possible, and that may well be a James Ryan coming in for Chesham, because I think James Ryan's a more physical lock. I think Ellis Genge has shown he's more physical than Andrew Porter around the field, so it's worth bringing in from the start to counter Valentini, Skelton. Those are the things I would be considering.
And you can make the argument on performance. You know, Porter was the one that got caught out of bodyguard for Jake Gordon's try.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly checked by the referee, but still. I assume you're picking Pollock.
No, I'm not picking Pollock. I have been effusive with our praise of Pollock. I am one of the biggest Pollock supporters, backers, and I'm pro Pollock more than most people. I'm also realistic. I don't think he's had an impactful tour in that 8 shirts, or when he's been given the opportunities, he's not quite grabbed them. So I don't think, as it stands, he should be selected for this test, just on the fact that I don't think he, on form on this tour, deserves to get that cap. A lot of people will probably disagree.
I probably agree.
Some people will probably be surprised that I'm saying that, but I still want to protect the sanctity of a Lions test cap, and I think it should be reserved for the very best of the best who are in the top of their game at that time on the tour. And I think, unfortunately, and it's the same with Finn Smith, I'd love to go to the last test with Alex Mitchell, Finn Smith starting 9-10 to show what they can do with Henry Pollock at 8. I'd love to, but is it warranted? No. They haven't done enough on the tour to make that strong enough argument beyond just my personal preference. So sometimes
I agree.
You do have to look beyond that. Would I be surprised if Pollock's on the bench? I could see it happening, just for Lions, clickbait media, social media stuff, perhaps to end the tour with a good image for the younger generation. Maybe I wouldn't put it like it's feasible, but I definitely wouldn't bring him to start for sure. Like Conan's been brilliant. Why drop?
It's just fantastic.
Why would you drop Conan?
Absolutely, and unless Henry Pollock can grow an even better moustache this week, and I don't think he can. No, he doesn't get the call up for me.
No,
I mean he would need a proper Lord Flashheart from Blackadder kind of tash to really.
If Henry Pollock can do that, then get him in, because we all know in that 8 shirt you need a strong tash. I think that's where I stand, and I agree. I wouldn't be making too many changes elsewhere, but we'll see. We've been surprised before, Rory. We'll be surprised again. But I still think I'm still predicting a 3-0 series whitewash.
Yeah, I am. But I said last week on the proviso that on what team Australia picked, and that team really, really brought it. I would, assuming there's no injuries in that Australia team, I would go broadly similar for them, but I would be tempted, because I don't think they they got as much change from the Jackal. I mean, obviously the incident aside, I would possibly be tempted by bringing Gleeson in for McWright, although that might be harsh on McWright because he's still a really, really good player. But just to up the physicality stakes again, possibly, maybe bringing someone like Uru onto the bench. But obviously they'll have to change Harry Potter. Not sure who they go for on that. I don't know what wings they've got around in the wider squad, really.
So,
but
I'll be interested if they brought someone like is it James Peach, who had a really great game for the Waratahs, I think it was, on the wing.
Yeah,
because like through all the warm up games, like all the wingers were having great games. So I think if they really wanted to, they should look through some of the teams that Lions struggled against at times. And I think it was Peach. I think it was Waratahs. I might be wrong. He really caused us problems with his physicality. So I'd be looking there if I was Schmidt. But I don't know if he's in the squad, if I'm honest.
I could see a situation where they go and find their most physical winger in that position to just really up it again.
I'd be doubling down on the physicality. So I'd probably be looking at. So I think Frost had a good game in the second row alongside Skelton, but I'd be looking at Salakai Lotto. Double down on the physicality because that's the same way he plays as Skelton. Just double down on it.
Yeah, you've got to slightly counter it with what you're doing at the line out and everything, obviously. But with Harry Wilson and Valentini, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I completely agree. I would just be up. If there's any way to up the physicality stakes, and actually that's a blueprint for Australia moving forwards. Just if they just pick their most physical team, they will get success because the players are good enough to be physical and effective around the park.
Yeah, and I think a final thought for me on the Australia performance, I'm very excited to see Ikitau running out on the Prem next season.
Oof, yeah. I knew he was a good player, but yeah, he is something a bit different, I think.
That Chiefs backline fully fit, it's interesting. You consider you got Feo Oboso, Brown Bampo being able to run off the shoulder of the likes of Ikitau. It's interesting.
Am I going to have to be nice about the Chiefs next season?
Let's just keep our powder dry for now, Rory. Remember, it's a fresh start next season.
Keep an open mind.
All previous opinions and thoughts, and to the fans out there who have already decided they don't like us because of some of our commentary on some of the teams. Fresh, clean slate. Now, Lions in the bag. Series is done, but we have one test to go. But the rugby doesn't stop there, Rory, because the Women's World Cup is just around the corner, and some of the sides are starting gearing up to it. There's been a few performances, a few games already. The England's Women's Rugby World Cup squad has been announced. Looks like a very, very strong squad. And some of the other nations have been having warm-up games, and some interesting results are taking place. And I know one you particularly want to highlight because I agree it's almost a complete turn up for the books. But Sean Lynn, formerly of Gloucester Hartbury women's team, PWR, now in charge of the Wales women, has he now made his mark? Because Wales women, they had one hell of a performance.
Yeah, going away to Australia and winning. Sean Lynn's first win as the Welsh women's coach. The noise coming out of the Welsh camp has been all about how much fitter they are now. That was a criticism from Sean Lynn in the Six Nations that the team just wasn't fit enough for that level. It sounds like he has given them a beasting in the camps, and they are seemingly reaping the rewards going away to Australia to record their first win under Linney's reign. Now, some have questioned the wisdom of warming up for a World Cup in England by taking the team all the way to Australia. Those people are not considering how much the Welsh committee wanted to go to the Lions tests, which is all the most important thing when warming up for a Women's World Cup is that the committee members get to roll out the gravy ties in the MCG.
Are you suggesting that the head honchos at the W once again performing perhaps not exclusively just in their own interests?
I'm suggesting that there were a few committee members who had some options for business class flights and 5-star hotels in Australia that they hadn't taken up yet, and this was a good way to tie all that together.
I'm guessing that was under the paperwork where they were deciding how many regions they'll have in the future, and they decided the business class flights were more important.
If, the choices were, do we pay for an academy in West Wales, or do we all have business class flights and a nice steak dinner? And I think they've made a sensible choice that any Welsh committee would have done in the past. And, it's shown dividends. They've gone away and won. And actually, the Australian women's team are, not a weak outfit. There's a lot of athletic talent in the Australian women's team, and it's a really good win for them to get. And actually, just to build a bit of confidence going to the World Cup, admittedly, they're going to be very jet lagged for their opening game. But other than that,
they should be physically prepared at least.
Yeah, I think most important thing is a huge congratulations to the team and to Sean Lynn for starting to turn those fortunes around. And what they've got is the nucleus of a really good. Of a really good team, a lot of players who played in that Gloucester-Hartpury title-winning side. There is talent there. It was about, can someone build a squad to utilise it and to get the most out of it? And Sean Lynn seemed like the right man and seems to be doing the right things now. So yeah, congratulations to them. We're obviously in the build-up to the tournament as a whole. Italy beating Scotland in a warm-up match on Friday in, another good result, but 34-29, so very tight.
Yeah.
So there's obviously going to be some interest from both sides on that, about where they go from there. This weekend, Australia playing Wales again, Ireland playing Scotland, and England are playing Spain. So we're going to start to get an idea over the next couple of weeks where each team is at. Yeah. Hopefully, England in particular gearing up to a real charge at the title.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the weeks ahead, we will be closely following the Women's World Cup to see how the Red Roses fare. Perhaps in next week's pod or the week after, we'll see how it lands. We'll really start digging into players to look out for, things to watch out for, and maybe some of the other nations to really keep an eye on, because this isn't just going to be a procession for the Red Roses. There is some healthy competition, particularly coming from the Black Ferns, being led by Portia Woodman, who's come back for this tournament. Really interesting matchups ahead. Now, Rory, time is tight because of our, lives and stuff. Do you have any DPRFR business or any other business in general to address before we bring episode 31 to a close?
Just a nod to the old stage of James Slipper getting his try at the weekend. One of the older statesmen of the DPRFR, one of our grandmasters, a great career, a long career in the green and gold. Just a sign of a doff of the cap from El Presidente to one of the old men of the nation.
There can't be many Southern Hemisphere props. I'm sure there's a few, and people will probably tell us, but who have participated in 2 Lions tours in the front row. There can't be many from Australia, South Africa, New Zealand. So fair play to him for longevity. I'll actually say 150 capper. Like, you don't do that unless you're pretty handy. So fair play to James Slipper. And that brings us to Rory's final thoughts. Do you have a final thought for the listener before we bring it to a close?
Just looking forward to seeing Dan Sheehan cartwheeling his way to another try this weekend for a 3-0 Lions win.
Fantastic. That's what we want to see. We've been Rucks Balls and Oval Balls. This has been episode 31. I hope you've enjoyed listening. Remember to follow us on all our social medias. Like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. And we'll be back again next week for some more rugby nonsense.
Bye.
Bye-bye.